Nguzo Sabah, 24/7, 365, the 7 principles. Many of us have heard of the sanctimony of Kwanzaa. And due to capitalism and sensationalism, it has just been highlighted as a day where it's Christmas for the Negro. Well, we want to correct that perception, understanding the 7 principles, practicing the 7-day period, its origins, what it's derived from, and how this 7-day demonstration can be used 365 days in a year to create a revolutionary communal change amongst the people. First, we must go to the history. And Nguzo Sabah means 7 principles. And the way that the 7 days happened was not by happenstance. Under the Afro-American Association, formed by the likes of Don Warden, with many popular people who played a part at one point in time in this organization, the likes of Dr. Huey P. Newton, Dr. Bobby Seale, many others throughout history. Now, when we look at the matriarch, the mother of Kwanzaa, Sister Makinya, she was the one that was over the San Francisco Bay Area's Kwanzaa committee. She also gave birth to the first Nguzo Sabah handbook and provided it to leadership in the year of 1967. From that date of 67 to 1971, she would lead groups of committee members, members of the Berkeley Youth Alternative. Each summer, they would go throughout the U.S. They would go to the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic, introducing Kwanzaa as, yes, a holiday, but also guiding principles that we step into the new year with. As she did this in the Bay, many other revolutionary Black nationalists, revolutionary cultural nationalists, picked up this tradition, used it as a way to have togetherness in the community, and used it as guiding principles. And it is still incorporated today in the new African revolutionary nationalist ideology. Many of these that practice this are veteran Black Panther members, veteran RAM members, members of the PGRNA. When it comes to organizing, many of the time the patriarch gets the credit and the matriarchs are less known. But as the saying goes, behind every man, every strong man is a great woman. Out of this would come a tradition. Think tanks, focal groups, Black student unions, who are trying to find themselves, know themselves, and determine the destiny of what they were fit to do. This holiday in itself was not developed until the fullness of 1967. However, it was written on paper, rough draft in 65. From LA, but brought to the Bay. The biggest celebration was in Merritt College. When we go down to the patriarchal leadership, this is one who was very unfavorable due to many acts of violence, rivalries, and etc. throughout history, but a matriarchal leadership was highly ignored. This one being Mama Kwanzaa, or the Mother of Kwanzaa, Sister Makinya Sibeko-Kouate. It was on that day in the summer of Oakland in '67 where this concept was at its fullness being shared on the streets of 42nd and Grove Street, which is now Martin Luther King Boulevard. Sister Makinya was given a sheet of paper that just had some definitions on it, had, what needs to be used. And in this process, to her liking, she placed the mat, the corn, the fruits, etc. on the table. She is also the one that made it the 7-day holiday that we know today. Through that year of 1967 through 1972, her and others would go throughout California. They would go throughout the Midwest. They would go throughout the Mid-Atlantic and the East and the South. And a team of the Kwanza Committee to push this celebration. Well, let's go past the Kwanza. And let's just look at the Nguzo Sabah that is practiced. This isn't just a practice of using African customs and themes, throwing on an African dress over a capitalistic mind. This is also to lead into a cultural renaissance that will birth us into a cultural revolution, if only we apply it right. We must think in the likes of tribunals, councils. As we do the historical dialectics, we see through that powerful time of the 60s and 70s, and even before, during the time of Reconstruction, our people, our ancestors had multiple conferences where people with different ideologies, New African, came together, multiple groups, diverse in ideology, diverse in the regions that they live in the hills of America. In these conferences, they would go through sessions to share their ideas and ideology, their methods and tactics, to establish a gold culture, a transfer culture, so that we could figure out how to end white supremacy. We could go, especially through the 60s and 70s, and look at the Black Power conferences, the Black Power expos. Some of these conferences, some of these demonstrations and meetups would birth the likes of what we have today in history known as SNCC. The conferences and the dialectics that they went through it birthed them not just into being a student nonviolent coordinating committee, but through that multicultural exchange and looking at the contradictions, they would birth themselves into Black nationalists on a Black Power ideology and be Black separatists and rename themselves the student nationalists rather than student nonviolent. Out of these conferences, the SDS, the Black demographic, would leave due to the contradictions. They would form RAM. In today's time, have you heard of any of these Black Power conferences? Have we heard of any of these soul sessions where we come together as a think tank, focus group, planning, strategizing on ways of unity, ways to build tribunals that could govern over where we differ and govern over our methods? I think in this time, due to a lot of confusion, that's something from the past and the act of Sankofa we must bring back into the day to enrich us. I truly believe through those efforts, we would be able to get rid of the confusion on the battlefield, and we'll be able to identify the menticide that has run rampant through the movements and the organization that has stagnated our progression. Umoja in the Swahili, known as unity. It is said to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and the race. When we look at unity, unity is just not a baseless concept of befriending one just because. There has to be a commonality. There has to be a common goal. Unity, as the word says, is to form a unit, to unite. And this unit must carry out a specific task in that form of unity. It must not be baseless. It is not for photo ops. It is not just for meet and greets and social clubs and baseless fraternizing. There has to be a work study relationship there. The symbol for that unity, they use a drinker symbol, one that is related to the, they call it the infinity knot. Many others in the drinker is called the crambone. And the meaning of that knot, that shows this link that cannot be broken, that does not end, nor is it seen where it starts. It's continuous. The definition given for that symbol of the crambone, the unity knot, is the abundance of good men made it difficult to identify Muslim. In another version, it is the bad Muslim makes it difficult for a good one to be recognized. In itself, this basic sentence shows that what we do and that what we don't do is always under constant judgment. Judgment of self and judgment of the people that we're there to influence. Moving on further, as we move through the unity, this unity leading into Kujichagulia. As we unite in Kujichagulia, the act of self-determination is given to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. This in itself cannot be done without going back to where we were from, understanding our position in the present, understanding our positions in the past, getting the values and the morals of both good, bad, making an assessment that's calculated. The historical dialectics. And with that, taking that very thing and applying what could aid this present, this gift that we have of today, what can enrich it, what can add the value so that our tomorrow is way greater. And as the tomorrow becomes the present and the present becomes the past, each day we get greater. The drinker symbol for Kujichagulia given in that month is the Ohin Adwa, which is the king's throne. This throne represents chieftaincy, It is a sign of natural identity and cultural groundness and the rightfulness to govern. Now, the king's throne, it is said that the soul of the king is in the throne. It is said that when the throne is absent, when someone's not in the throne, the king must turn that throne, he must pick it up and put it on its side so that nobody could sit in his seat and take his soul. This throne is to remind us, it is to encourage us to respect those in authority, those in leadership, to respect those who have carved a path for us to make a way where we are in this present day and into the future. Furthermore, as we have now went through this act of self-determination, Kujichagulia, as we're grounded in that to define and determine our destiny, we have to move through this unity and this self-determination of Ujima, which is the collective work and the responsibility. It says to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems and to solve them together. So as we're on this third development, it is still speaking on the first, the importance of the unity, but through those very first, the very next two after it, it is giving you the symbolism is speaking of telling how and why we're in unity and what to do with this unity. So when it says to maintain our community together and make our brothers and sister problems our problems, that in itself is camaraderie. That in itself is empathy. The drinker symbol that we're given is the Akomo. It is the hearts that are united. As you see the symbol, many people, you see the four corners, these halves of hearts that are connected to this main thing in the middle. They're connected to this circle, and that circle and the symbol itself represents people who are working together to achieve a common goal. And again, for this to happen, they must all agree with another on that common goal. And they should at least be open to understanding others' points of views, their opinions. In this way, as they discuss the views and the opinions, they work out through achieving this common goal the best way to do it amongst that group. With this sign of Akoma, again, it is a heart that means, in the drinker, it means goodwill, it means tolerance, it means faithfulness and endurance and consistency. So as we move through the unity, as we move through self-determination, as we move through being uniting to be determined so that we can have the collective work and responsibility, this soon leads to our cooperative economics, or Ujamaa, meaning to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. Socialist construct, communal construct. Before we heard of this term here as New Africans, we have to go back through history and go through Ujima process of Julius Nyerere. This Ujima, they pronounce it differently. The J is kind of silent. But as Julius Nyerere's concept, it was a constant communal togetherness where people had housing, where people had food, where people had the basic necessities of life. And as the government gave them out and people in turn worked with the government, there were people that were over these towns, people that were over their neighborhoods. And they were also representatives for the people to get this work done. Again, look up Julius Nyerere's Ujima. This was a political, social ideology that he formulated. And so the sign that's given to us is a sign from the Igbo people. The sign itself is the showing of two links together. The sign means togetherness. It's a representation of family, but more so, it's also a representation of love. And so moving through this, we have to step into our purpose. Nia. To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. In all things that we do, there must be a purpose. As new African people, we understand the purpose is to free the land, to free our mind, to have a nation of our own, to have a destiny that we determine as a people. The sign for this purpose, Nia in Swahili, they give us the Kemetic symbol, the Metaneta symbol of Nefer, Nefer, meaning one that is good, that is of beauty, that is of excellence. Following is Kuumba, creativity. To do always as much as we can and the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited. The sign that we're given is a sign of the Dogon. From this sign is to be the 7 vibrations of creation from the creator god Amma, who's identified with Amen. Again, this is a symbol from the Dogon of creation, of how it started. When we look at creativity, because we all have a natural process to create, to make things from our mind and put them into the physical. Many of us who are blessed can also do this through the process of sexual reproduction, where we make copies of ourselves that is merged with our partner for the continual process of getting better each generation, and that every generation that we birth stands on our shoulders and we aid them as a mentee and mentor process, showing them the ropes of life, the guidelines, the jewels and the tools, so that they know how to handle that which we learned at a later date, and that they have that with them earlier than we had it. The 7th principle, Imani, faith. It is to believe with all our hearts in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, in the righteousness and victory of our struggle. There's an old slogan in our community that comes from a religious background, but it says faith without the works is dead. So I guess that's why 6 principles before this one was all based on work. The last one is the foundation of faith. The symbol that they give us is one that is a double symbol. It is a Djed pillar, which is said to be the backbone of Osiris, representing stability and endurance and steadfastness. And that Djed pillar is inside of the Ankh of life. Life which is given from, whether it be Aten, Amen Ra, Ra. This, in turn, what the Kemites believe, this life-giving coming from the source of all things. Faith in itself, the belief that you can achieve, in a way, is the process of that. You believe you can achieve, then nothing will be achieved. Every action first starts with the thought, and then that thought is based on believing you could do it, attempting to do it, learning from your mistakes to do it, and completing the task, and to make it better with every generation. In regards to Nguzo Sabah, being that these 7 principles are a time for togetherness based on practice to enrich the community. But we should look how also we could settle our quarrels within Nguzo Sabah. As we already looked at Umoja, and we looked at the infinity knot, letting us know that when one does misfortune and bad deeds, it is hard to see the good in this group of people. And it being reversed, that the abundance of good men's makes it difficult to identify those who say that they are the best out of the community. Because when many are flourishing, we're all flourishing. But unfortunately, when one does wrong, we all suffer. Furthermore, in this act of unity, going into the collective work and responsibility, there may be a difference in ideology. There may be a difference in tactics. But the collective work and responsibility is telling us to keep focus on the community. It is to keep focus on the issues that separate us, so that we work against those issues that separate us and be more focused on the issues that connect us. And as we reinforce what connects us, we get the work done. We understand that we all, as people, are going to rub each other the wrong way. But when we come as liberators for the people, first a liberator to yourself, liberator to your family, a liberator to your community. We know that through a revolutionary culture, cultural revolution, the mental side must be eliminated. Because if mental side is not eliminated, we will eliminate each other, and ultimately we eliminate ourselves. If these 7 principles were studied more, practiced on a 24/7, 365 method, this process would eliminate many of the quarrels and help us identify those who are not working to enrich the community. When it comes to Nguzo Sabah, these 7 principles, again, it is not on an individualistic basis, nor is it talking about individual reward. As we practice these methods, we realize that we're servants of the people. We're here to serve. This is the reason we must apply Nguzo Sabah, not just on a holiday, but it should be supplied 7 days of the week, every week, 365 days of the year. This Nguzo Sabah, again, is not based on a re-Africanization process that's stowed on a capitalist mind. This Nguzo Sabah cannot be done by one person alone. And Nguzo Sabah itself is a communal process. And as new Africans, we must understand that sovereignty, liberation, and freedom is a communal process. Revolution is a people's thing. And I yield.